Welcome to The Explainer. So today we're exploring a fascinating and honestly kind of painful reality. We're looking at how the smallest, most seemingly insignificant oversights can just ripple outward into absolutely catastrophic financial and historical losses. We're talking human error on a massive, massive scale. And hey, by the end of this, you might actually feel a whole lot better about your own bad days at work. We are completely skipping the formal agenda today because I want to drop you right into the action with a pretty heavy question. What is the true price of a single mistake? Is it a bruised ego, a lost client, or could it literally be hundreds of millions or even billions of dollars? We're going to see exactly how astronomical that price tag can get when the stakes are at their absolute peak. Section 1. Typos that cost millions. So we all type every single day, right? But I want you to think about this for a second. What was the most expensive typo of your entire life? Maybe you accidentally sent a super embarrassing email to your whole company, or, I don't know, booked a flight for the wrong month. Painful? For sure. But we're about to look at a typo that is in an entirely different league of its own. Okay, let's dive into this. Picture this. It's July 1962, and NASA launches the unmanned Mariner 1 spacecraft to massive fanfare. But less than 5 minutes after takeoff, the mission had to be abruptly aborted. The rocket was destroyed, and $80 million just instantly evaporated into thin air. Literally, poof, gone. A potentially historic spaceflight barely even made it off the launch pad. And the cause of that $80 million fireball? It was a single missing hyphen in a highly vital piece of mathematical code. The renowned British science writer Arthur C. Clarke famously dubbed this the most expensive hyphen in history. Simply because of that one omitted character, the guidance software received completely incorrect signals, which forced the range safety officer to actually destroy the rocket. One keystroke, $80 million down the drain. Section 2. Lost in translation. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is that sometimes the error isn't a simple typo, but a catastrophic failure to communicate basic standard units of measurement. Notice the huge clash of metrics here for the 1999 Mars Climate Orbiter. The flight system software on the orbiter was brilliantly programmed to take thrust instructions using the metric unit of force, newtons. But the software on the ground that generated those instructions? Yeah, it was using the imperial measure, pound force. They were literally speaking two completely different mathematical languages. The consequence of missing that crucial 4.45 conversion factor was just horrific. The orbiter was supposed to safely circle Mars at an altitude of 226 kilometers. Instead, those conflicting measurements drove it way down to 57 kilometers, where it completely disintegrated due to atmospheric stress. That is a $328 million engineering error. And you want to know the truly tragic irony here? At least 2 navigators actually noticed the trajectory discrepancy beforehand, but their concerns were completely dismissed by management. Unbelievable. Section 3. Billion-dollar business blunders. So, what happens when the mistake doesn't happen on a keyboard, but while sitting around a fancy corporate boardroom table? Let's go back to the year 2000. A scrappy little DVD by mail service called Netflix was losing money fast. Co-founders Reed Hastings and Mark Randolph walked into the headquarters of the undisputed titan of home entertainment, Blockbuster, and practically begged for a $50 million buyout. The response from Blockbuster's CEO and his execs, as Randolph later recalled, they laughed us out of the room. Seriously, can you imagine being the executive who actually laughed at Netflix? I mean, just look at this contrast. Blockbuster could have owned the whole shebang for just $50 million. Instead, they completely rejected the subscription-based, late-fee-free model, choosing to cling to a business that relied heavily on penalizing its own customers. Fast forward to today, and Netflix is valued at over $150 billion, while Blockbuster is completely bankrupt. It's a harsh reality of what economists call creative destruction. They failed to innovate, and that arrogance literally cost them their very existence. And then there's another legendary blunder from the mid-1970s. So a young filmmaker named George Lucas was struggling with this expensive, really difficult sci-fi production called Star Wars. The studio executives at 20th Century Fox didn't really see much long-term potential in the film at all. So in exchange for Lucas taking a pay cut on his directing fee, Fox gladly surrendered all the merchandising and sequel rights directly to him. They basically thought toys and t-shirts were just going to be a passing novelty. Well, that passing novelty generated billions. So the crucial point is that by retaining those rights, Lucas built an absolute personal empire and set a whole new standard for merchandisable franchises. 20th Century Fox essentially handed away a literal gold mine for free, which resulted in an absolutely obscene amount of missed revenue right up until Disney acquired Lucasfilm. Just a massive, massive miscalculation. Section 4. Worst Real Estate Deal. All right, let's scale this way up from the corporate level to the global, geopolitical level, and look at a severe lack of historical foresight. In 1867, the Russian Empire was recovering from a pretty humiliating defeat in the Crimean War, and they viewed their remote North American territory as this financial drain that they just couldn't defend. So Tsar Alexander II sold Alaska to the United States for a paltry $7.2 million. That's about 2 cents an acre. Now look at the timeline here. Within decades, major gold rushes completely transformed the region. By the 20th century, massive oil discoveries turned this supposedly frozen wasteland into one of the most resource-rich and economically vital territories on the planet. And this brilliantly illustrates the ultimate danger of short-sighted criticism. See, at the time of the sale in 1867, the American press heavily mocked the purchase. The New York World called it a sucked orange, implying that Russia had already completely drained all the value out of it. The New York Daily Tribune totally dismissed it as impassable deserts of snow. These critics completely misjudged the territory's hidden long-term worth simply because they couldn't see past the ice. Section 5. The Cost of Hindsight. So whether it's a single missing hyphen bringing down an $80 million rocket or literally laughing a $150 billion company out of a boardroom, all these disasters teach us the devastating price tag of short-term thinking. I really want to leave you with this thought. Right now, what massive blunders are currently unfolding in our modern world that we just can't see yet? What impassable desert are we actively mocking today that will actually turn out to be tomorrow's billion-dollar missed opportunity? Keep that in mind the next time you're tempted to dismiss a crazy new idea. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep your eyes open, and hey, always double-check your work.